President, I rise today with my friend and colleague, Senator Cotton, to honor law enforcement officers and recognize the service and heroism of Arkansans who vow to serve and protect by pursuing a career in law enforcement. These individuals selflessly volunteer for this duty while accepting that the dangers of the job also continually put them in harm's way. It takes a special person to take on that responsibility, and that fact must never be lost on us. Today, I want to recognize several law enforcement officers who recently made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. Benton County Detective Paul Newell was escorting a convoy of vehicles delivering materials for Wreaths Across America when he was tragically killed in a motorcycle crash on Saturday, December 17th. As a 24-year veteran of the Benton County Sheriff's Office, Detective Newell made a lasting impression on his colleagues, the community, and everyone who knew him. Those who served alongside him saw firsthand the impact of his compassion and kindness on friends and strangers alike. These traits served him well in more than 2 decades as a law enforcement officer. He was happy to engage with community members to foster positive relationships, participating in events like Shop with a Cop to spread Christmas cheer to children in need. He launched his career in law enforcement in 1998, worked in many jobs in the Benton County Sheriff's Office, including as patrol deputy, patrol sergeant, and training sergeant. His commitment to ensuring others in the Sheriff's Office learned from his training and experience was evident. Detective Newell was also a motorcycle enthusiast. He rode with the Harley Owners Group and shared that interest with kids in the community by letting them sit on his motorcycle at local events. As a veteran of the U.S. Army, he continued his mission to serve others into civilian life and faithfully represented what it means to be a true public servant. I join all Arkansans as we mourn the death of this hero. Detective Newell demonstrated what it means to protect and serve every day when he put on his badge and uniform, and his final act was in honor of others who have served our country. I ask my colleagues to lift up Detective Newell's family in prayer. We are forever grateful for his selfless sacrifice. I'm honored to be here with my colleague from Arkansas, Senator Cotton, to show our appreciation for fallen but not forgotten law enforcement officials.
I join one of law enforcement's finest friends, Senator Boozman, in honoring and mourning Benton County Detective Paul Newell, who passed away on Saturday after a lifetime of service to his community, our state, and our country. Detective Newell was also an Army veteran and a law enforcement officer who had served with the Benton County Sheriff's Office for 24 years. Detective Newell began his career in the office's detention division. Thanks to his hard work, he rose through the ranks to be a patrol deputy, a patrol sergeant, a training sergeant, a lieutenant, and finally, a detective in the Criminal Investigative Division. In short, Detective Newell was a patriot who served his community and his country with great devotion, and even in his final moments, that's exactly what he was doing. Last weekend, Detective Newell gave up his Saturday morning to escort the Wreaths Across America procession through Bentonville. The procession was delivering wreaths to our fallen veterans at Fayetteville National Cemetery. Detective Newell was on a police motorcycle. Tragically, Detective Newell's motorcycle struck a curb during the procession. He crashed into a semi-truck and was pronounced dead at the scene. Detective Newell's passing is a tragedy and a reminder that the men and women of law enforcement risk their lives every day, and not just in shootouts or foot chases, but in so many other unsung acts of service they perform day in and day out. Detective Newell deserves our gratitude, as does every American who puts on the uniform. I'm proud to report the community of Northwest Arkansas came together to show their gratitude for Detective Newell's service. The morning after that tragic crash, officers and citizens alike came out to honor Detective Newell as law enforcement transported his remains to the Arkansas State Crime Lab. Detective Newell gave his life during a procession honoring our fallen heroes. so it's only fitting that Detective Newell should have received a procession honoring him in return. Detective Newell's watch is ended, but his spirit and his memory live on. May God comfort his wife, Charlene, his daughters, and all those who knew him in this life. And may God bless and keep Paul Newell. Madam President, I also sadly join Senator Boozman today in mourning the death of another patriot, veteran, and great Arkansan. Last week, Stuttgart Police Sergeant Donald Scobee was shot and killed in the line of duty while pursuing a dangerous criminal. Officer Scobee lived a life of selfless service. He is described by friends as the type of person who would give you the shirt off his back. He joined the U.S. Army and was deployed to both Iraq and Bosnia, where he fought to keep peace halfway around the world. He proudly and honorably served in our armed forces, but he wasn't done there. Back in Arkansas, he joined the Stuttgart Fire Department, and then in 2018 joined the Stuttgart Police Department. In 2019, the department named him Officer of the Year. After a life of running toward danger to protect others, Officer Scobee was in hot pursuit of a violent and unstable criminal, a man named Jacob Barnes, last week. Barnes then abandoned his car and fled on foot. Officer Scobee pursued him. As Scobee chased down this menace to our society, Barnes opened fire on the officers, shooting and killing Officer Scobee. Later that night, Barnes met an end that it's fair to say he deserved. He was killed by Arkansas SWAT officers, but this justice is insufficient to repair the far deeper injustice that he had inflicted on our state and on Officer Scobee's comrades in arms, his family, and his friends. Arkansas lost a hero last week. Donald Scobee served in war zones, charged towards raging fires, and fought criminals threatening our streets. He protected our country, our state, and our neighborhoods. He lived a noble life, and he died nobly, serving the community he loved and swore to protect. He leaves a legacy and an example from which all Arkansans can draw inspiration. We grieve his death, but we are grateful for Sergeant Scobee's life of sacrifice. Our prayers are with his wife Amanda and his 4 children, Rebecca, Sarah, Dylan, and Haley, and all those who knew him and loved him. May God bless and keep Donald Scobee, and may God console his family and friends in this time of grief.
Madam President, I also want to recognize the service and sacrifice of Stuttgart Police Department Sergeant Donald Scobee, who, as we've heard, was deeply passionate about public service. For 4 years, he protected his community as an officer of the law. Sergeant Scobee was fatally shot while attempting to apprehend a suspect who fled a traffic stop last week and was laid to rest last Monday. Even before joining the police force, he demonstrated his willingness to give back. In fact, helping others and meeting needs bigger than his own have been a cornerstone of his life. He served in the U.S. Army and deployed during the Iraq War, in addition being part of a peacekeeping group in Bosnia. He also stepped up to the plate back home, working at the local fire department, first as a volunteer before joining full-time. His colleagues at the fire department recall his friendly manner and enthusiasm for helping others. His positive attitude and determination were apparent to those he served with or encountered. The Stuttgart mayor called Sergeant Scobee a fierce advocate for the community, and others close to him fondly remember his humor and selflessness, describing him as the type of person who would give you, quote, the shirt off his back. It's clear he meant a great deal to so many, and his legacy as a giver and protector will serve to inspire countless others and comfort his family, friends, and all those he impacted throughout his life. Sergeant Scobee's death is a tragic reminder of the risk law enforcement officers face each day when they put on their uniform and start their shift, knowing their duty to serve and protect could place their safety and very lives in jeopardy. Yet that's exactly the choice they make each day, just as Sergeant Scobee did only a few short days ago. Tragically, but with valor and resolve to uphold his oath, he made the ultimate sacrifice. My thoughts and prayers are with his loved ones, including Amanda, his wife of 16 years, his children and colleagues at the Stuttgart Police Department, as well as the citizens of this very close community as they mourn the loss of a hero in Sergeant Donald Scobee. Finally, we join together to recognize the service and sacrifice of Jonesboro police officer Vincent Parks. Vinny, as his family and friends called him, was one of those brave Americans willing to answer the call and play an integral role in the safety and security of his neighbors, friends, and even strangers. He was just weeks into his law enforcement career, learning about how to be a force for good and the responsibilities that come with wearing a badge. While continuing his police training at the Central Arkansas Law Enforcement Training Academy at Camp Robinson in North Little Rock, his life was tragically cut short. Though he did not survive the medical episode he experienced, we know he was prepared to sacrifice his own safety and well-being for the good of others. We are blessed to have brave men and women like Patrolman Parks who are willing to wear the uniform and take the risk. His death is not in vain, and his community has already demonstrated an outpouring of support to show how grateful they are for his service. Honoring his life is also a tribute to his family, whom we know were the most important thing to him. He surrounded himself with the love of his mother, Jacqueline, his wife, Christina, and his daughter, Viviana, his little girl, whose dancing brought him endless joy and pride. This son, husband, dad, friend, and colleague is gone too soon, but he will live in the hearts and memories of all those he impacted and cared for. Our thoughts and prayers remain with the Jonesboro community, those who served alongside Officer Parks, and all those that loved him. May he rest in peace, and may his example inspire and shape future acts of service and sacrifice. I yield the floor to Senator Cotton and thank him for his constant efforts to champion our law enforcement community.
Sadly, I joined Senator Boozman again in mourning the death of a public servant and a good and decent Arkansan. This July, Jonesboro policeman Vincent Parks died from a heart attack after training exercises at the Central Arkansas Law Enforcement Training Academy. He was on the force for 32 days. Parks was a native Arkansan and a dedicated family man who is survived by his loving wife, Christina, and his daughter, Viviana. He is remembered as a kind and joyful man with an infectious smile and a positive attitude that could fill a room. For 14 years, he had a good, stable job, but he felt a calling to do more and to serve the community where he was born. So in June of this year, he answered that calling, and at the age of 38, he joined the Jonesboro Police Department. Tragically, only a month into this noble new chapter of his life, Officer Parks started showing signs of medical distress during training. He suffered a severe heart attack on the way to the hospital and was pronounced dead later that day. All of Arkansas was saddened by the news that this good and dedicated man was taken from his family and his community so young and too early. But his memory, spirit, and example endure. May God bless and keep Vinnie Parks, and may God bless and keep all of our heroic fallen officers. Madam President, we yield the floor.